Jana, if you had 2 hours a week to create content, what would you prioritize? That's what we're talking about
Oh
today.
my God. Yeah, it's such a good question because I know so many of our viewers of this show and people in our communities in general don't have a lot of time for content, right? And I know sometimes when people watch us and they know that we're talking about content all the time, and we talk a lot about what we do in our content, I know there've got to be some people who for whom it's kind of crossing their mind like, but yeah, but you guys like you have a lot of time for content. And it's true. Like I do feel like I have the luxury of spending a good amount of time on my content. And I know you do as well, although you're a busy mom and you're being pulled in a lot of directions. But generally speaking, we have a little more time than the average person, but there's a lot of people out there who are like side hustlers or just really truly only have like a very limited amount of part-time hours to dedicate to their business. A lot of my folks are coaches and service providers who actually like need to spend the majority of their time with clients, right? And on client work or on the line with clients, coaching them. So yeah, so it's definitely like it's a question, I think, like so I love this topic. We decided we want to talk about what we would do if we only had a couple hours. And before we hit record, Heather, you were saying you only have a few hours a week anyway that you dedicate to content, right? So what kind of balance are you striking? And then I'll tell you what I would do if I was really limited.
Yeah, many of you watching this might have heard me say in the past, like I only spend Tuesdays on my own content creation process.
Mhm.
That's the only day of the week that I really have to create content for myself and the academy, so my membership group, my
Your
email
YouTube channel.
list.
Your YouTube, right?
Yeah, my YouTube channel.
Hmm.
So I really spend about the first 3 hours of my work shift because that's when I'm freshest. I have the most energy. That's the time I spend filming YouTube videos.
Hmm.
So in back in May, I sat down for the summer and I mapped out all of my YouTube topics, email topics, what I would be sending out to the email list, whether it's a newsletter or content kind of
Hmm.
newsletter. I mapped all of that out in the course of just a couple of hours in the morning for about 10 weeks of time. Then I plugged all of that into my system, and now every week I sit down and I know exactly what I need to.
Oh, you're freezing up a little bit. For me on my end, you're frozen, Heather. I don't know for sure what people on the YouTube would be seeing. You were frozen there for a moment.
I'm back. It just reconnected itself back to my house. So let
Oh,
me
okay.
just flip this one to make
Okay.
sure it doesn't try to reconnect again.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with my mini routers, but
Hmm.
they're not working. Um, okay, so I don't know
What face is
I don't
that?
know where we got hung up. I don't know where we dropped off with my
Yeah, you were
internet
just
connection.
basically saying that like you spend Tuesdays and not the whole Tuesday. So you really only have like 3 hours for your intentional content creation for your YouTube channel and then for all the other
Yeah.
places where you show up. Um, Not including this. Like we are creating content right now. So you have an hour that we
Mhm.
do, 45 minutes to an hour on Wednesdays as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And I mean, I do everything on Tuesdays
Hmm.
and then
All
it depends
content.
on the week.
Hmm.
So I yesterday I spent the day outlining content and uploading content to my membership. So I was outlining content for a summit I'm going to be in that I need to film later this week. But that's not for my audience. So I don't
Yeah,
even
yeah. Hmm.
consider that in that content bucket. But
Right.
I will re-record that for the membership once that summit goes live.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I spent yesterday really polishing content that I'd filmed a few weeks ago for the membership. So it's not always like what I create on Tuesday goes live that Tuesday.
Hmm.
Most
Yeah.
often it's what I create on Tuesdays is going live in a few weeks. So yesterday I spent the day really just outlining, trainings and getting social media content prepped. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I'd
Yeah.
love
So
to
I think
hear.
what
I
I'm
think you have
hearing,
more of
sorry.
a conversation.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I think
I see
part
you.
of what I'm part of what I'm hearing you saying is that even though you imagine like you have about 3 hours a week that you dedicate to content, there's some overlap with other activities because when you're creating content that goes inside your membership, that's not the kind of content we're talking about today on this call. If we're saying if you only
Mhm.
had 2 hours for marketing content for your free content, that's for your whole audience. But you're
Yeah.
saying that sometimes there's some overlap there because you can create something that is for your free audience, and then it basically shortens the cycle for needing to create for the inside of your paid program, and then also vice versa. So sometimes it's not like just like cut and dry, like it's like 3 hours for this and 3 hours for this. There's a little bit of overlap sometimes. So in that way, like 3 + 3 can equal 5. I
Yeah.
think it sounds like, which is really smart. So
Yeah. In
I'm
fact,
glad that
actually, last
you,
week I filmed.
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you. No, you, no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say really quickly, last week I filmed a video for the YouTube channel, and then I immediately turned around and filmed the same training, but more in depth for the membership.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I talked people through the how of doing something on Pinterest, and then I went
Mm.
into the strategy of doing something on Pinterest for the membership. So in
Mm-hmm.
about, an hour, I had two things out, and one of them will go
Mm.
public.
Ah, good point. Yeah, really, really good point. And smart because it reduces like context switching. Like if you're already thinking about it and you already have in your
Mhm.
mind like the 4-part framework or whatever that is, you can turn around and do it again and just go into more detail for your paid audience. So that makes a lot of sense. Yep. Cool. Okay. Um, I think sorry, I think I was like cutting you off a little bit because
No, you're
I wasn't sure if you were
fine.
frozen or not. Oh my God, we are so awkward today. What's going on? Why are we so awkward?
It's our internet. I think the storm is messing yours up in
Maybe.
Florida, and our internet company has been replacing all of our internet lines in the
Yeah.
neighborhood this week
Oh,
and
okay.
last week. So
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
Anyways,
totally. We're like
you were
stepping
gonna
on each
start
other.
telling me what's in your
Hmm.
list.
Okay, I will. Yeah, it's so dark out right now here in South Florida. It's like weird. It's like so, so dark. It's like it's nighttime, I swear. Okay, so getting back to the topic at hand. What I would do if I only had 2 hours a week for content. So there's kind of like two scenarios I'm imagining here. One is like, say something happened in my life, right? And I needed to like, let's say like my grandmother needed me to be there for certain hours or something, right? Um, or something like that. And I needed to restrict the time that I used to spend on my content to only 2 hours a week. Or also for people who are listening, like if you were starting a new content strategy for your existing business or starting a new business and a new content strategy, maybe you only start with 2 hours a week. Like for one of the reasons I mentioned earlier, you're just really limited on time or you have a full-time job or whatever that is, right? So I think that this plan that I kind of laid out for myself, like what if to prepare for this conversation could work in any of those scenarios.
Mhm.
And this plan is totally based on what I teach inside of high leverage content, which is totally based on what I have done for my own business for the last 8 years and how I've taught clients to do content before I created the course as well. So it's like
Yeah.
a real like road tested like system that, that I would follow again if I were starting over or if I was limited. So I just wanted to say that. So I'm so glad that you mentioned, Heather, that a couple months ago you sat down and mapped out your content for 12 weeks because when I was trying to decide how I would spend 2 hours a week, if that's all I had on content, my mind kept going back to this thing. And I was like, is this cheating? Is this cheating? Which is this. The first thing I would do if I knew I was only going to have 2 hours a week of content is I
Yeah.
would plan myself a little kickoff retreat. And like I said, maybe that's cheating, but I would try to say, like, I'm going to take a whole day or maybe even 2 days and I'm going to plan out all of my blog content. For me, my long form content is a blog, right? And I would
Mhm.
follow my HLC process, my high leverage content process. I would look at the 9 types of content. These are the 9 and 2 pillars that I teach inside of HLC. I would go through the process just like I teach it, literally step by step how I teach it, to brainstorm at least 10 ideas. I'd probably have more, but at least 10 for each of those 9 categories. And then
Yep.
I would narrow down all of those to the very best topics for each category and document my plan. So basically, after going through this process inside of HLC, I do it based on, I have my students and clients rank all of their ideas or rate them all, I should say, score them really based on A, R, and E, which we've talked about here before, which is alignment, relevance, and ease. We can link another video to talk about that. But I would do exactly that process. And the result of that would be that I would know what, for me, it would be like, I'd probably say around 20 because I'm a very prolific creator, but it could be anywhere between 12 and 20 topics that I'm going to create my long form content, in my case, my blog post, but this could work for a YouTube channel, podcast as well, for the next 12 weeks. So I would give myself that little like runway and head start to make sure that my content plan and the things that I'm going to create my content about in that only 2 hours a week are highly intentional. And I think that's really the key to
Yeah.
creating less content in a finite period of time, is giving yourself that gift in the beginning of having a process to follow to make sure your content is super intentional. Um, the way I describe it, as you know, inside HLC, is I say, like, there are certain things, 9 things that your audience needs to learn and hear and understand more deeply to be ready to buy. And if I only have 2 hours a week to work on content, I absolutely don't want to waste any time. I want to make sure I'm getting right to it and I'm really honing in on the right topic. So I would do that process to start to make sure my plan is super intentional. And then once I do that, once I had that little retreat for myself, and that could be at my house or it could be by the pool at a spa, wherever it is, I would have that plan ready and kick off week 1, if you will. And then for the first 2 weeks, every week I would spend that 2 hours writing and publishing one of those 12, or for me, it would maybe be a few more blog posts. I would spend that 2 hours using my 4-step writing process to write and publish that blog post. And then after the first 2 weeks of doing that, on week 3, I would spend that 2 hours going through those first 2 blog posts that I published and pulling out 10 pieces of micro content. So that could be things that I'm going to send to my email list, social media posts, and I would go through both of those blog posts, pull out 10 pieces from each one, and I would schedule in that 2 hours 4 weeks of emails and social posts. And I know I could do that in 2 hours. Sometimes when you're first getting started with that process of repurposing that micro content, it could take a little longer, but I definitely feel like I could do that in 2 hours. So that would take me through week 3. And then I would repeat the process again. So week 4 would be writing and publishing a blog post again. And week 5 would be writing and publishing a blog post again. So now I have 4 blog posts. And then in week 6, I would repurpose those blog posts 3 and 4, hopefully that everybody's following this, into 10 more pieces of micro content for my email list, and for any social media channel that I want to be on. And in this scenario, if I only had 2 hours a week, I would just do one social media channel. I wouldn't be doing more than that. So if you think about it, that's a 6-week cycle, right? Where I'm writing and publishing 4 highly strategic pieces of long form content. And I'm breaking each of those pieces down into 10 each of micro content for those smaller channels, right? So 2 hours every week for 6 weeks. And then what I would do is I would repeat that whole 6-week cycle again, and I would repeat it again. So basically I'm repeating that 3 times. Hopefully everybody's following. I probably should have made like a chart or a graph or something. And I would repeat that cadence 3 times until I had, or 2 times, depending on how many pieces I wanted, between 12 and 20 blog posts published on my blog. And I'd be banking all that micro content so I could start again at the beginning and use it again at the beginning. Because repetition is great. Repetition is actually what creates sales in your business.
Yeah.
So repeating your main messages again, 3 months later, even, word for word is fine. It's great. It's not just fine. It's actually desirable, and it'll help you make more money. Long story short. And I do want to note about this plan, this like cycle plan that I'm talking about, that I would be doing minimum viable social media and email, especially social media, until I get to the point where I have a library of content on my own website. Because for me, long form content, because it converts faster and it's much more of a long-term asset for your business and it's evergreen, that would be my priority in the beginning, even if that means I'm not as visible on social media as I want to be, even if it means I'm not as visible in their email boxes as I want to be. And then once I had all of that content published, that library, I could ramp up my visibility in email, which is like basically what I do these days, and ramp up my visibility in social media to whatever degree I desired. Because again, social media for me is never the priority. My priority is always going to be the long form content. So that's my like 18-week plan. It would be 3 cycles
Yeah.
of 6 weeks. And in each 6-week cycle, I'm publishing 2 pieces of content. No, 4 pieces of content, sorry. And breaking those pieces of content down into 10 pieces of micro content and banking them so I can use them again and again. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Was I clear on that, or did I need a visual PowerPoint slide to get my point across, Heather?
No, I think that makes sense. And I think most of our audience is smart enough to follow along, that we have a
Most of
really
them.
intelligent crew that follows us around. So
Yes, yes, yes. And you can always go back and watch that again.
yeah, you can go back and listen and take notes.
Yeah,
What I'm hearing you say is that um, you can honestly create a library of content that will attract your ideal audience, and you don't need to constantly be publishing in order to do that, because you're doing a lot of repurposing once those posts are live. Then you can
exactly.
take your content distribution channels and really drive traffic to those destinations, drive ideal readers to those destinations. Now, it's a little bit different with my YouTube strategy, obviously, because YouTube rewards consistency in publishing. They will stop serving my videos if I stop publishing on the platform. Like eventually the likeness for my channel will run out. That meter will deplete, and I will have to start publishing again in order to get back into the reward system. So you as you're thinking about these platforms that you want to show up on, you have to be thinking about the amount of time investment that you have, the amount, not only time into creating the content, but also time into everything else that Jana was just talking about, the repurposing of content to other platforms and really using the content to your advantage. That's one thing that I'm really poor at. I've been poor at doing in 2024. Even like 2023, I was poor at repurposing content. I was just like all in on YouTube and email. And now I'm coming back around to, flirting around with putting things on social media and putting things on, in other places other than just blog, email,
Mhm.
Pinterest, YouTube. So I think you really have to consider what the platform that you've chosen to do long form content on is going to require of you, and how many of those hours, you're going to be able to set aside. So whereas
Yeah,
Jana can do 2 hours a week, every week, it might, for YouTube, especially if you're editing your own content, you might need to double that, because you have to outline,
oh, editing,
film,
right.
edit,
Yeah,
and publish,
yeah.
right? Whereas
hmm
blogging is a lot more low lift, in my opinion, than
hmm
creating video.
Yeah.
Just simply because this morning I had to spend time combing my hair and putting makeup on and like
Yeah, there's
showing up
that. Yeah.
for
Yeah,
video.
there's
It's
that. And
not
I think
just
I think it's like so I think part of what you're saying is if you truly only had 2 hours a week, then maybe you need to think about a blog instead of maybe going all in on a YouTube strategy, for example. Or maybe you have a podcast, but you have a really solid team behind you who are editing and doing all the things necessary, right? So you have to really be realistic. And if you truly only have 2 hours a week, maybe the more low lift of these three long form content platforms is the best one. I also want to say though, like you are more advanced in your business, obviously,
yeah.
and you have fairly aggressive like growth strategy and growth expectations for yourself on YouTube.
Mhm.
You're clear on the fact that you're not, an influencer. You are um, a coach. I know that you don't necessarily identify with that, but you run a membership where you coach people on how to market and how to use Pinterest. So, you're clear that that's your business model and that's your monetization model, which we've talked about a bunch. So it's not like you're like all just there for the views on YouTube kind of thing. But that being said, I mean, you do have some brand sponsorship types of deals that come your way and whatnot. So you have a little bit of a hybrid model. I actually do personally believe that if you are not trying to aggressively grow on YouTube, you could do more of a minimum viable strategy than you do and not
Yeah.
necessarily like publish every week into perpetuity. I think you
Mhm.
could publish a small but mighty library of content on the platform. And then maybe with YouTube, like you said, you do want to keep coming back, but maybe it doesn't have to be every week for the rest of your
Yeah.
life kind of thing. But that's just, that's my opinion. You know the platform better. You're definitely the platform expert for sure. So I
Yeah.
would defer to your opinion on it.
Yeah, I think it just depends on, your desired goals in your business, where your audience is
Right.
at. There's so many factors that you have to consider when you're considering what platform to choose and then how to deploy your 2 hours a week. I will say
Deploy. I
this
like that
little
word.
system that I did in May, I'm gonna just drag it over. It's under my desk. I'm gonna dip down for a second.
Okay.
I
Pull it up,
went and
baby.
bought a
Look
little
at
calendar
that. That is pretty. Okay. Let's
from
check it out.
Target, and I have my daughter's book nerd bag of Sharpies that I asked her if I could have them. And she's like, sure,
Nice.
Mom, you can have them. I was like,
Right?
great. Okay, I'm taking them. I have not returned them. But I have a bag of Sharpies and I have this calendar. And then
Mhm.
I also went to one of the office supply stores because Target was all out. But if you can find the big pads at Target, get the big pads of
Mm.
paper. And basically what I did was I just mapped out one column for each thing that I was planning
Yep.
and what those topics were going to be based on the goals and the content that I really wanted to focus on for the summer.
Mhm.
So I have 3 of these giant pieces of paper on the floor. But I did this when I had my little retreat with Allie in
Mhm.
early May. It's been
Right.
a little over a month ago that she flew out here and we had like a little work retreat together. And I absolutely loved it. So I actually need to do July now. And I think when I do July, because my kids are home for the summer,
Mhm.
I'm not going to do it at home. I'm actually
Uh-oh. We lost you a little bit.
and get a room. I'm going to like reserve a library room and take them with me so they can go to the library, like go in the
Oh,
library and
yeah.
read books
That's
or
a good
whatever.
idea.
And
Yeah.
I can just like write and do July's planning.
Mhm.
And then this whole process starts over again.
Mhm.
In July, I'm going to do August. I'm just going
Mhm.
to do 1 month at a time when I do this next couple of months because
Yep.
the kids are home. But then in August, when they go back to school, I'm going to take a day alone, ditch the husband, and do the fall planning.
Mhm. So basically the way it's been kind of playing out is like you need like one retreat kind of quarterly, right? It sounds like in your business,
Yeah,
the way it is now, the way you are with all your content production, you need like one
yeah,
day every quarter to plan out your content for the next quarter, roughly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And I really fell in love with this system of
Mm-hmm.
doing it like this and actually seeing the dates and then mapping the big pieces of content to an email. And then, from that, I can break that down in my system, my digital system, and click up
Mm-hmm.
to social media. I don't have to do the social media part,
Yep.
but this at least gives me an overview of, okay, I have these main topics and I have
Mm-hmm.
these spaces available. So if a
Mm-hmm.
brand partnership comes along, I can fit it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or if I'm in a summit or someone wants to trade opt-ins or something and we want to promote each other's stuff, then we can do that. Like I have spaces, but the majority of the content is
Mm-hmm.
planned,
Mm-hmm.
it's identified, and then I can kind of work around that for like growth goals.
Right.
So I have these workshops planned for the membership. I'm going to do these emails for the email list. So it really helps me to see exactly what I have to work on every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And with your system of how like you broke it down, that is so good for my brain, like working like that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and knowing exactly, okay, this week I'm working on these 2 outlines.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm walking away from my desk because I already have content going out and I'm going to
Right.
come back next week and I'm working on these 2 things.
Right. Well, I think the idea too, oh, you're a little frozen, but I'm going to keep going. When you have a plan, right? Whether
Four
it's the
weeks
kind of
ahead in
plan,
filming.
oh,
So I didn't
sorry,
film yesterday. I've gotten to where I don't. That's all right. You go ahead.
you were
You're asking a
frozen.
question. Go ahead.
We had that phrasing. You froze, so I started talking.
I don't know what's going on, Jana, honestly. I'm gonna have to restart the internet.
I was saying that when you have a plan, whether it is a really simple streamlined plan like the one that I just went over that I teach in
Mhm.
HLC, or if it's a little bit more um like detailed if you already are on multiple platforms and you're planning out not just your long form, but each of the, the different platforms, or if you have a, podcast or a YouTube show in addition to a blog or whatever your system is, whatever it is, if you have a plan, the thing I love about it, not only does it it gives you that intentionality so that your topics are going to be high converting, but it also gives you the ability to batch or not batch. And I think a lot of people get like obsessed with like the idea that like, oh, I have to batch. And like even the way I just described my plan, my 6 week, like 18-week plan, it sounds
Mhm.
like you're doing a lot of batching. And the thing is like you could batch if you want. You could sit down and batch. But if you're having a week where you were going to batch and you're just not feeling it, you don't have
Yeah.
to. You know what I mean? Like it gives you that
And
ability to like do some batching when you feel like it, but also just create as you're going without because sometimes when people just create as they go, they lose that intentionality and they just create whatever they feel like creating, or somebody asks them a random question that wasn't really the best topic, so they're covering that because it's on their mind or whatever. But if you have a plan, it frees you up to be able to go either way. You can batch, yes, or you can just do it as you go, but follow your plan to make sure that it's those high converting topics and that intentionality.
that is
So that's one of the things I like
exactly,
about this.
yeah, that is what happens over here. There are some weeks where I will only film one YouTube video and I'll tell
Yeah.
Sonia, I only got one done this week. I'm so sorry. And she's like, girl, it's fine.
Yeah. You're frozen, so I'm going to fill in the blank there. And so I think that there are other weeks where you're more productive, like maybe you have more time
So, but
available, or
she's
maybe
like,
you
we're three. Yeah. And
awkward.
it really depends on the energy levels, right?
Right.
That we have for the
Yes,
week.
that.
I always try
Yep.
on Monday, I have a rule that I treat myself really well, even though Mondays are crazy busy with client stuff. I eat really well. I
I
feed
love that.
myself a really healthy dinner. I make
Yeah,
sure I wash my face and wash my hair. Like my hair looks good today, right?
it
I took a
does.
shower last night. But
Nice.
tonight,
A
today's
shower.
Wednesday. I know. So on Mondays, I make sure to shower and wash my hair
Uh-huh.
and wash my face, and I moisturize my face before I wake up on Tuesday. And then
Hmm.
Tuesday, I wake up and I feed myself really well again
Hmm.
because I need the energy to
Right. And
produce.
then the rest of the week, you're like, whatever.
And
Order a
then the
pizza.
rest of
No,
the
I'm just
week,
kidding.
I starve myself to death. That's
Yeah.
why I'm just kidding. No, but Monday and Tuesday are really prioritized
Yeah, I like that.
in prioritizing my energy and working around my energy. We're female, like we are women, we
Mhm.
have cycles that we run
Yep. I
within.
was thinking the
So
same thing. Yep.
there are some weeks of the month where I don't have as much energy as others, and I'm just kind of playing around
Right.
those cyclical natures of
Right.
being a woman and having a period every month and all of
Right.
that stuff. So,
And
you know,
having a plan gives us the ability to, uh-oh, my alarm just, oh my God, this is the weirdest live. And never, any minute my dog's going to freak out because she does not like this little boingy alarm thing that happens. Okay. Anyway, I was just saying that when you have a plan, you give yourself the ability to work with your energy basically and not
yeah,
try to work against your energy. Because I know, like, when I learned all about cycle syncing as an example, I was thinking the same thing when you brought it up.
yeah,
I was like, that's great. But sometimes I can't just be like, oh, okay, that's when I'm going to be in my whatever luteal or whatever it is phase. So I'm going to plan like a light week. I can't always think that. I can't always like layer in all those different like factors, right? So
yeah.
instead, just designing things like your content plan around the idea that I'm going to be able to do as much as I want to and I'm motivated to, regardless of whether I woke up with a lot of energy or not. And
Hmm.
as long as it's kind of evening out and I'm not ever like just like going through like periods where I'm just not doing anything for weeks or weeks,
Right.
which, isn't the end of the world either, obviously. But, the point is it's going to even out. Um, yeah. And I mean, that's how I've designed a lot of things in my business, intentionally or not. And I think
Hmm.
that's definitely why I have done content like this over the years, or found this system over the years to do content this way, because
Yeah,
I knew I wanted to be able to work with my energy. It took me a while to realize that that's what was going on, but that is what's going on. It's like I want to be able to work with my energy.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And I mean, other shit comes up in our businesses too, right? Like
Hmm.
yesterday on Tuesdays, I never check my email inbox, but yesterday I was in my email inbox and I was in Slack more than I would have preferred.
Hmm.
So, things come up
Yeah.
and you have to give yourself that freedom and flexibility within, the content. But here's the thing, and here's the big lesson I have learned over the years. And looking back, I'm so glad that I changed my working model to be this way.
Hmm.
Instead of always feeling like I'm pushing the boulder uphill, I feel like now I'm chasing it downhill. Like I'm just chasing to keep up with the thing.
Yeah.
And I've set this up this way, and I feel better chasing it because I feel like I can catch up to it. But
Yeah.
when I'm pushing it, I feel like it's going to collapse on me at any point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Good
I
analogy.
set this up very intentionally to completely block off Tuesdays to work on my own business, to work on my own
Hmm.
marketing. Those are my days. It's in my contract for my clients. Like I do
Mm,
not do anything for you on Tuesdays. And I
good.
set aside this time. I
Hmm.
also have it in there. I don't work on holidays. I don't work on weekends. I work
Hmm.
9 to 3 every day. Like these are my hours. I have a lunch break. I'm very like structured with that.
Hmm.
It gives me freedom and flexibility within that to work around what I need to work around. And it gives
Right.
me the the empowerment to work on what I need to work on those days. But here's the deal. When I started working only on my own content on Tuesdays, my business took off
Mm,
because I consistently showed up and was publishing, and the audience and the community started growing. And people started looking to me for help and coming to me and hiring me to do their Pinterest management or whatever it was,
mm,
because I took the time to honor my business
mhm.
and do what I needed to do.
Yep.
So if you can't find 2 hours in your week to create content, then I think we need to have a more serious conversation around the goals that you have for your business,
Hmm.
especially if they're lofty,
Yeah.
because you're probably not going to reach them if you can't set aside 2 hours a week to work on. I mean, this is minimum
Yep.
viable, 2 hours. Come
Yep.
on, you're scrolling on TikTok. I don't want to be one of those people that's like, you shouldn't be on your phone. Like, you only should create and not consume. Like, I don't like being that person because I love to consume. Okay.
Yeah, and and consuming sometimes can be inspiring if you're doing it the right way and you're not letting it, take over.
But you do have to understand that the only way that you are going to create great content, you're going to do it consistently, and you're going to get this library of content that you can rely on,
Hmm.
is by showing up for yourself.
Right. Yeah,
So,
totally. I
off my
literally,
soapbox.
yeah, no, it's good. It's a good soapbox. I was writing an email to my list this morning. Um, And if you want to get the email, sign
You
up for my
should. Why
email
not?
list and the link in
Yes.
the in the description. My high leverage hits emails, which I've moved from Tuesdays to Thursdays. Big news
Ooh,
around here. Um, but yeah, I was just writing an email this morning about it's kind of related. What was it? Oh my God, I just forgot because I got all whacked out on
I haven't read it yet,
the
so I don't
Tuesdays and
know.
Thursdays. No, I didn't send it yet.
I
Oh my
know it's
God.
only Wednesday, so I haven't read it
Yeah, well,
yet.
I mean, it's not even ready to go. Like I have to go back and polish it up and get it scheduled. But basically, um, oh, it was talking about the fact that I've observed it's been a year that I have been selling high leverage content and I'm coming
Mhm.
in, I'm almost at 100 students, basically
Yeah.
100 people. And one of the things I've noticed is that in terms of patterns, a lot of the people who get the best results fastest, who like pay back their 997 investment the fastest, are people who come in having not been creating a lot of content.
Yeah.
And I think it's a combo, and which is not what I would have necessarily thought. I would have thought that the people who are like in the habit of creating content, but they just need to get it more high converting are the ones. But actually, a lot of people who've gotten clients within the first like 30 and 60 days of publishing HLC style content are the ones who weren't publishing a lot or at all. And I kind of think it's because it's like there's like this pent up need for what they offer. And then also just like the sheer like strategy that comes in when you have to be super intentional about your content. Like, and that's what HLC is all about, is being really intentional in like a short amount of time. But those two combined like make it, I think, so that that's what happens. And so what you're talking about essentially is like you're running this business, you've got all this expertise, but you're spending a lot of time on your clients' work. You're not setting
Mhm.
aside Tuesdays to consistently get your own ideas out there. Maybe you're consuming too much on TikTok and not creating as much on your main platforms and TikTok, whatever, as you want. And then when you turn that corner and you start saying, nope, Tuesdays, my content, it's like all of a sudden that momentum happens really fast. And it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
like It's like there were people who were like waiting to buy, and you like,
There
you
are,
needed to like put the messages out so
truly.
that they know what it is and how to buy it. And,
Yeah,
I mean, it's not all that, obviously. It's value content, which I think sales content is valuable too. But what you're hearing, what you're saying matches up with what I observe in my audience, is my point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think this takes us nicely to what we're going to be talking about next week, Jana.
Mhm.
And that is if you're starting a coaching blog, there are 3 things you think you need, but you don't. And that's what we're going to chat about with you guys next week. So this week we came live a little earlier than normal. Next week we will be live at our normal time, which is 12 Eastern. So we will see you back here next week to talk about whether if you're starting that coaching blog, what you don't actually need. And Jana's got the scoop.
Don't waste your time on those 3 things.
Don't do it. So come to find out what those 3 things are next week. And we'll see you back then.
See you then.
Oh my God, my stomach just growled so loud.
I'm like, rawr. All right, why don't you, I'm going to let you